I wanted to take this up the road and show you it working on a site today, but you know, she's a bit cold and wet and there's wolves after me, so I think we'll just do it on the bench. Hello boys and girls, hopefully the sound of the weather isn't coming through too much on the video. It is really hammering down now. Today we are checking out the DCS191 Rebar Cutter. In other parts of the world you might not call it rebar, reinforcing rod, I don't know, whatever you call it where you come from, this cuts steel rod. This is the big brother to the DSC163. This will cut steel up to 20mm in diameter. This is the second rebar cutter I am reviewing. You may have seen this one that I did a couple of weeks ago. Unlike the Hikoki though, this one only cuts, it doesn't bend, but it does have a greater cutting capacity than that Hikoki one. The Hikoki one does maximum of 16mm, like I say, this does up to 20mm, so you can do 19mm 3/4 inch. However, this tool probably has the highest size to weight ratio of any battery tool in existence. It is crazy heavy for the size of it. Yeah, it just looks like a standard drill size here, which it is. But of course it does have this big bloody attachment on the front, and that big bloody attachment makes this thing bloody heavy. The weight of this thing with a battery on is 11 kgs. Hence why it's got a big handle on the top here, because you don't want to just be holding it with a handle down there and pulling the trigger, because it's rather front heavy, as you can see. Now I have no use for a tool like this really, so I did not buy this tool, I borrowed it. Look at all these bolts. I want to pull those out and see what's going on inside this thing, see what makes it tick. But because I'm borrowing it, the person I borrowed it from might not be too impressed if I did such a thing. If I think it's not going to be a problem by the end of the video, I might just do it. We'll see. Anyway, let's have a look at the features of this thing. As you can see, they haven't even bothered making a mold for this particular tool. They've just thought, right, we'll grab an old drill case and we'll just block up the hole where you change the gears. The head of this thing rotates 360 degrees, so you can get it on any angle you wish. It locks in every 90 degrees. It's got a detent where it sort of clicks in place. This handle here is also adjustable, so you can turn that to get it on whatever angle you want. Unlike the Hikoki one, you can use this one on site with steel that's already in place. If it's in situ and you need to go along and trim the tops off them, then this is the tool you may want to use, because it creates no sparks, no heat, not likely to cause any damage to anything else, unlike using an angle grinder, which of course sprays sparks everywhere and can be a safety hazard with some sites. Makita say it'll cut rebar from 3mm to 20mm, 3mm rebar, and to get the right sort of depth adjustment, it's just a very simple bolt and nut on the side here. So you'd set that to the diameter of your steel, poke it through there, pull the trigger. Not going to do it with my finger in there, however. Taking a look at the cutting area. Your steel sits in there like so. This is your cutter. This edge here makes the cut when it comes in contact with the other side here. So the cutter has 4 different edges you can use. This side, that side, that side. You just have to spin it around, flip it over, that sort of thing. Makita say you get 4,000 cuts out of it, so I guess that's 1,000 per side, and then you'll have to replace that completely. When you pull the trigger, this just pushes out slowly and just cuts so easily, like so. And you saw that retract by itself, and there you have it, one cut piece of steel. They don't make a nice job of it, but it's only rebar, so it doesn't really matter, does it? You can see it compacts the steel a bit there. That surface is being flattened just from the pressure of it. Same with that side there. Just pushes down and just shears it off. It is quite cool that an 18V tool can do such a thing. The gearing in here must be so full on to create that sustained pressure. Now it takes around 5.5 seconds to make the cut. If you take your finger off before it's gone all the way through to the end of its cut, it will stay out, but once you eventually hit the end, it will then go back by itself. Pretty similar to the Hikoki one. But yeah, it's so cool how they just share it off. It's just so easy. No sparks, no heat. By no heat, there is a very, very tiny amount of heat. Nothing that's going to burn you or be any problem of any kind. If you're wondering why I have a whole lot of pieces of rebar this size, it's because this is the shortest length that the Hikoki one will cut, whereas you can see with this one, you could just nip just the little end piece off if you needed to, whereas Hikoki you have to cut off at least that much. So that might be advantageous for somebody if for some reason you just need to nick a whole lot of little pieces off rebar. This is 16mm rebar that I am cutting at the moment, and it's not a very loud tool. You don't need earmuffs. Ear protection not required, although safety goggles should definitely be used in case any of these little shards of steel flick up into your face, or this shatters or something like that. 12mm. I'm glad I decided not to go up the road. She's a little damp. 10mm. This bolt's a bit long, and it's 1/2 inch in diameter. Actually, that's not too bad. Wouldn't take too much of a cleanup to get a nut on there. I thought it was going to be absolutely destroyed. 10mm threaded stainless rod. No problem at all. In fact, that looks like it'd be even easier to thread on. I don't know what it is about these rebar cutters, but they're just incredibly satisfying to use. They're, as well as being super useful and handy, it just seems to be quite good fun. What about a piece of wood? Can we get this in here? Bit of 19mm Vitex. Full capacity there. Can she do it? The things you do when it's raining, huh? Now, I know the more psychotic amongst you are going to be thinking, what happens if you stick a finger in there? Kids, do not try this at home. Okay, here we go. This is gonna suck. Not as bad as I thought. Oh. Okay. It was a little bit bad. Tingles a bit. Oh. Whew. Yeah. Not advisable. I think I need a plaster. It's all fun and games until someone loses an eye. Or a finger in this case. I wonder if I can put that finger back on with this. I'm sure it'll grow back. Now, if you think this is pretty cool, I fancy one of those, be aware, they come with a very hefty price tag. They're very cool tools, this and the Hikoki one. If you work with rebar every day, super useful tool, definitely not a DIY tool. Take a look down in the description for links in Amazon, the UK and America if you want to see what it costs where you live. Just brace yourself, okay? 'Tis a little pricey. Now, surprisingly, it does have a variable speed trigger, and where the normal forward and reverse switch is actually just a lock. Put it that way, locked. Push it back in from the other side and you're ready to go. But just notice this. Variable speed trigger. Seems a bit strange to have a variable speed on a tool like this. But if you really want, you can cut your rebar in slow motion. It Let's see how slow we can cut it. So why have a variable speed trigger when it didn't really cut when it was going at that slow speed? You needed to really ramp it up. It sounded quite interesting. It sounded like a plane at times. This is a brushed tool. It's quite an old tool. This was released 4 or 5 years ago. Due for an upgrade. I think you can get a newer version now. Certainly of the smaller one I think you can. When it comes to changing the blade, you've got 2 screws there and 2 screws on the other side of this blade, so you'd replace both of those at the same time, and like I say, each one has 4 sides. Now those of you who always wonder why I use 5 amp hour batteries and I think they're better than the 6s, I used this the other day with the 1.5 amp hour battery, no problem at all. When I put a 6 on, once it gets down to 2 bars, stops working. Doesn't have the guts, cuts out. And that is a problem I have with the 6 amp hour batteries on so many tools. They only get halfway depleted and then they can't power the tool anymore. So pretty useless. They're essentially 3 amp hour batteries for a lot of tools. If a 1.5 amp hour battery can run this, then a 6 amp hour battery with 2 bars showing shouldn't have a problem at all. But it does. And I tried it on 2 different batteries. Same problem. I don't have any rebar above 16mm or 5/8, so I can't check it with 19, 20mm, that's sort of 3/4 inch. But I'm sure it does it just fine. It did it fine at 16. There's still plenty of power. It just slowly motors its way through the steel. That large size, not too common here really, certainly not for people like me. That's rather heavy duty industrial skyscraper sort of grade. Due to these not being all that popular and being so expensive, they are unlikely to be stocked by most places. You'll probably have to order this thing. If you're in New Zealand and you want to order one, take a look in the description for a link. And if you do buy one from Handy Hardware down in the description, I don't get a cut or anything, I'm just supporting them because they're a local business. And yeah, figure I might as well support them because I buy all my stuff from them. So yeah, that's the Makita DCS191 in the States. It'll be the, what, the XCS0 something. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not sure which one it is. For most guys, I think the next one down from this, which is a lot smaller in this area here, this is pretty hefty. I mean, look at that. There's a lot of steel in there. 16mm only one is much thinner, so presumably a much lighter tool. A little bit easier to handle. Anyway, this was just a cool tool that I've always wanted to have a play with, and I finally found someone who would lend it to me, so that was cool. I did manage to grab a whole lot of rebar related tools at the time. So I still have this rebar cutter to review shortly, and this works on a completely different system. As you can see, there is a blade in here, which is a circular blade. Unlike this, which is just a chunk of steel. And I've got the tire that you saw just before as well, so we will review that too at some point. I better get them done soon, I suppose, because this person's going to want them back. Anyway, that was just a nice quick one, guys. I just wanted to have a bit of play with this and have a bit of fun with it. And it's really cool. But it doesn't bend like the Hikoki. And that bending function is very, very cool. So thanks for watching. For more Makita reviews, don't forget to subscribe. I'll put some stuff up in the top corner up here. Yada yada. See you later. Very cool. A fun way to pass the time while it's too wet to do anything else. Why is it so satisfying?